And slowly open the eyes. So I was talking about masks in the meeting. And it's very clear for me that masks are programs. They're shoulds. I should be like this. I should achieve this. I should do this. There are all these social ideas we have that put us into a box, a place where it's appropriate. And we lose our spontaneity, we lose our uniqueness, we lose our emotions, we lose our humanity under the masks. You know, people are more afraid of being disapproved than of anything. We're afraid of being disapproved. We're afraid of not being loved. We're afraid of not being good enough. And we're constantly walking around worrying about what other people think. What's appropriate, what's inappropriate. But we're never authentic. Why are we not authentic? Because we have no concept of our authenticity. We don't know who we are. We have an idea, but basically it's just an accumulation of our programs, of our belief systems, be they religious, be they social, be they political, be they gender orientated. They're programs, they're masks that are appropriate. And when we start to go in, we start to question our masks. And we can see how we've spent all our lives abandoning our true essence, trying to be how we think is appropriate, or a way to receive love. Why? Because when we're very small, we stop loving ourselves. We create the illusion of separation from the perfection, from our divinity, from our internal love, our innate perfection. So what are we doing here? We're coming back. We're rediscovering ourselves. We're letting go of that which doesn't serve, and we're finding something authentic and real that can sustain us in all situations. A place where we stop abandoning ourselves and we start to live in a place of innocence. Because divinity is innocence. Joy is innocence. It all comes from that place of perfection that you were born with. So we start like this, and then we go round and round and round and round and round, and we get exhausted, and we abandon ourselves, and we get stressed to the point that we can't even be by ourselves. And then ultimately, we just come back to ourselves. So humans go through all of this process just to come back to where they started. But wasn't it fun? Yes, all the suffering, all the drama, all the self-flagellations. Wasn't it great? All the successes, all the losses, all the creativity, all the broken hearts. Wasn't it great? But it's exhausting, no? Life is exhausting. Why? Because we're always going against life. We are taught to go against life. We are taught that there's something wrong. We are taught that all love is external. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose the love. But it was always here. That unconditional perfection was within us. And the human experience is so beautiful. Life is so beautiful. And when we start to be present in the moment, we start to see it. Fresh in each moment. The miracle of life. But when we're here, we can't see anything. Just our preoccupations, what's going to happen in the future, what if, oh, why did I say that, why did I do that, how can... Sound familiar? But when we're here, silence, expansion, beauty, changing seasons. In this moment. Because creation is a wonder. And it's perfect. But it's not structured. It's wild. It's always changing. Always changing. And we have to be the same. We have to change. We have to evolve. We have to flow. And once we have consciousness, we embrace life and we embrace death. We embrace everything because that is not who we are. That is our human experience. Okay, questions?
In what moment we know we are seeing the other as he is or she is?
That's a good question. When I know myself intimately, when I heal my perception, my window of perception, when I love myself unconditionally and I acknowledge every aspect of my humanity, I start to see other people as they are because I know myself intimately. But until that moment, there's always an aspect of projection from my past. You know, I always feel that we just keep recreating the family dynamic. And until we heal that within ourselves, we see everything through that filter. But as we start to heal, we start to see the perfection. And it can be within the duality. Because we embrace every part of ourselves. Oh yeah, I used to do that. Oh yes, I was like that. And we start to cultivate compassion. And once we have compassion, we can love unconditionally. But it always starts with self. So often, people are fine by themselves. And then they get in a relationship, and the mirror is very strong. And you might not be identical to that person. Like the things that you judge. But you have aspects. And it's a possibility to start healing yourself. To start healing the things that you don't like externally, and having a deep look at you and giving love to you. But initially, we're always projecting. You know, you meet someone, for example, and you think you're in love. Oh, I'm so in love. This is the love of my life. I'm going to get married to this person. Blah, 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 blah. You know, I've already had children. The usual fairy tale. And can you see that person? Maybe for a split second, you see that person clearly. But then you start projecting. And then you start to see. And you don't always like what you see. Why? Because it was never there. It was what you wanted to see. Or it might be the opposite. You might see someone and you're like this, and then in another moment your perception starts to change. So that's a very clear understanding that you're always projecting. That's why it's so important to sustain the innocence of children. Not to feed them all the ideas and prejudices and judgments and belief systems, so that they can have a clear vision. Because everything based in fear comes from us, comes from our judgments, comes from our perceptions. So it's vital to try and be as clean as you possibly can. And when you have no judgment externally, you can see that you're seeing clearly. There'll be aspects, obviously, but for basic clarity, where you can see someone for who they are, it's by having an intimate relationship with yourself.
How not to turn off the sensitivity of environment and the perception of people not to condition my life, judging and teaching and preaching.
You know, when I was young, I was very politically active, no? I would march Save the Whales, women's rights, indigenous rights, stop uranium mining, animal rights, and the list went on and on and on. And I had very strong ideas of what was good and what was bad. And I used to suffer my ideas. And I used to push my ideas onto other people. And people didn't follow my ideas, I judged them. And all my ideas were environmentally structured, no? They were intelligent ideas for a better world. I always had those ideas. But the thing was, I suffered. You cannot change the world. You can elevate consciousness. You can be clear. But you cannot fight for what you want. And suffering what you want never works, because it becomes one-pointed. And it's external. And that's not how to live. And yes, we have to change lots of things. It's very clear. And in a lot of countries, people are very conscious of this. And in other countries, they're not so conscious. But there's lots of corruption, there's lots of destruction. All of these things are happening. So what is the solution? Well, firstly, Sustainable
El
development
desarrollo sustentable
starts with
que
humans.
comienza por cada ser humano.
If you don't love
Si no
yourself,
nos amas a ti,
you don't love the planet.
no amas al planeta.
If you don't love
Si
yourself,
tú no te amas a ti,
you don't love other
tú
people.
no amas a otras personas.
If you don't love
Si tú no
yourself,
te amas a ti,
you're not
no
giving.
estás dando.
So we need to
Entonces,
focus,
necesitamos enfocarnos
firstly,
primero
on loving
en
ourselves,
amarnos a nosotros mismos.
and just as a
Y
byproduct,
como resultado, como consecuencia,
we teach other people to love
vamos a enseñar a
themselves.
otras personas a amarse a sí mismos.
But within that
Pero
change,
dentro de ese cambio,
there's no
no
judgment.
hay juicio,
There's only
solo hay
compassion.
compasión.
Because people are as they are
Porque cada persona es como es,
because of what's transpired in their
por
lives.
aquello que ha acontecido en sus vidas.
And to judge that
Y el juzgar eso
is just judgment.
es puro juicio.
It puts you in a place of ego
Y te pone en un lugar totalmente de ego
and
y
superiority.
superioridad.
And that's not sustainable.
Eso no es sostenible.
But when you come from unconditional love,
Cuando tú vienes desde el amor incondicional,
that when we come from that
cuando
energy,
venimos nos relacionamos desde esa energía,
that's what touches
es
everyone.
eso lo que toca a todos.
Because we're teaching unconditional
Porque
love,
estamos enseñando amor,
not lack,
no carencia,
abundance,
no abundancia.
but from a place of
Lo
compassion.
hacemos desde el lugar de compasión.
And this is why it's so
Y
vital,
por esto que es tan vital
the education of
la
children,
educación de los niños.
you know, from the very beginning.
Desde el principio,
Just for basic things.
cosas básicas.
Like, as an Australian child,
Un niño australiano.
I would never throw something out the window.
Hubiera tirado basura por la ventana del auto.
Not in a billion years. It just wouldn't even occur to me.
Me hubiera ocurrido.
Okay, that's one simple example.
Un ejemplo simple.
Just one example.
Ejemplo.
And as we start to
A
educate
medida que vamos educando,
from a place of unity and love and consciousness and teaching children
enseñamos a los niños
that they're perfectly okay to be exactly as they are,
perfectos que sean como son.
they start to protect everything.
Empiezan a proteger naturalmente
They
todo.
stop projecting.
Dejan de proyectar,
They stop competing.
dejan de competir,
They stop
dejan de
separating.
separar,
They start incorporating and loving
y amar,
and supporting.
y apoyar.
And that
Y eso,
is sustainable.
eso es sustentable, sostenible.
Okay, but it starts with
Pero
us.
eso comienza por cada uno de nosotros.
It's that
Es
simple.
así de simple.
It starts with us.
Empieza por cada uno de nosotros.
And you know, the other thing
Y
is,
la otra cosa es
you have to acknowledge
que tienes que reconocer
that things are
que
changing.
las cosas están cambiando.
Things are changing. You know, people are becoming conscious.
Cada persona está
They're
tomando
planting
conciencia,
billions of trees and
plantando millones de árboles.
like people are becoming more
Cada uno
conscious.
se torna más consciente.
You know, but so many people are locked in their heads,
Están súper encerraditas en sus cabezas,
in their
en su
suffering,
sufrimiento,
be it emotional, financial,
emocional,
whatever.
financiero, de lo que sea.
But if we teach people joy
Nosotros enseñamos la dicha
and
y la
celebration,
celebración.
everything will start to vibrate
Todo va a empezar a vibrar
in that
en
energy.
esa energía.
You know, you say protect the forest.
Ustedes dicen, protejan los bosques.
Most people don't even know what a forest looks like.
La mayoría de la gente no conoce un bosque.
And they can be sitting in a forest
Yo creo que pueden estar sentados en un bosque.
and they can't even see the forest.
En el bosque.
They'd be like, it's a sea. You know, people are not present.
Las personas no están presentes.
Because the majority of humans,
Porque la mayor parte de los humanos
if they were really present,
estuvieran realmente presentes,
wouldn't do the horrible things they do.
harían las cosas horribles que hacen.
What is it that Jesus says?
¿Qué es lo que dijo?
Forgive them, Father.
Perdona a los padres,
They don't know what they
no
do.
saben lo que hacen.
And that's what we have to destroy.
Eso es lo que tenemos que destruir. La
Ignorance.
ignorancia. And my question is, I feel sports are my big passion. And since a year ago, I started with some physical pains that don't allow me to train and practice in the way I used to. After seeing doctors and doctors and doctors without any solution, I decided to come to learn to surrender to that too and let go. But sometimes I cannot avoid that. Once the expectation, the wanting to get better, or the fear of not getting better. I wanted to see what you tell me and how I can move through that.
You have to listen to your body. You know, if you've got tendinitis, if you've got this, if you've got that, you have to stop. You have to do yoga. You have to do things that are lighter. You have to unify, let go of the stress, and just give yourself a bit of time. And the thing is, it's a call for you to go in. You know, sometimes we get lost in the doing, in the competing, in this idea of what we have to achieve. And the body's talking. It's saying you have to slow down. And there's something you need to remember. If you stop, you continue. If you don't stop, you can stop completely. You have to stop. And you have to heal. There's nothing else you can do. And I know it's not easy, because you start to lose everything. But when you come back, everything's perfect again. And to get rid of the stress out of your body and to heal very quickly, unify. It regenerates so fast. So fast. Yeah?
These days, and what I expressed in the meeting, I had a sensation as a child, like feeling like a child. And a question with myself. In what moment did I lose that divinity as a human being? I was born with light, with divinity,
you know, the
with
thing
the
is,
joy.
you never lost it. It's within you. But we fill ourselves up with so many ideas, so many masks, so much stress, so many shoulds. All our attention's external. Your consciousness is eternal. Eternal, eternal, eternal. And it's in you. So the minute you turn your attention back, what you focus on starts to grow. It starts to expand. And because consciousness is vibrating with creation, or is creation, it starts to evolve very fast. Why? Because it's real. Unconditional love is real. So the human experience that creates the duality usually starts around 4. That's when we start thinking there's something wrong with us, that we're doing something wrong, that we need to change something, that we're not perfect exactly as we are. And we'll have some sort of fearful event. And then we start to lose that innocence. And we go through a huge process, and then we return to that space. And it's as if to say, you know, you can't appreciate the light unless you see the dark. You can't see the moon if you haven't seen the sun. So it's the process. It happens. And for different people it happens in different degrees. And sometimes the people that have had the worst experiences revolve much quicker. They evolve much quicker because they go into such a depth of suffering. And they stop. It's like, oof, I've got to do something different. Or some young people are very intelligent and they watch everyone else and they go, oop, don't want to do that. Yeah? So it just depends. There's no rule. But the rule that does exist is you are the consciousness. So it's impossible not to come back to that experience. It's impossible.
I have a close relationship that doesn't know the system, and he hates himself, and responsibility of the panic attack and depression, and so happiness and freedom. And the question will be how I can be like supporting her in that process or helping her.
You can just share your experience, but you can't change her. She has to decide to change. But you can inspire people. When you're focused on consciousness, you have a certain energy. And even though people might negate it, their heart feels it. And the heart always wants to come home. And the worst thing you can do is try to fix someone. You just be you. Share what you do. Share your joy. And don't be affected. Because people go through their processes. And at some point, most of them come out.
How can you have so much compassion for the planet, for you, for the people? I suppose for you, I imagine, no? But I've seen the compassion you have for the planet, for the animals. So, how you do to have so much compassion? Because I want a bit. I want to do that.
You want to do what?
To have that compassion that you have.
But you don't? You have.
But big? Not physically. Your infinite compassion.
But you have an incredible compassion and sensibility. And you need to love that. You're like that too. And as your consciousness grows, it becomes bigger and bigger. Yeah, and that's perfect. You don't want to be me. You have to be you. No one can ever be like someone else. And this is a sad thing. Because everyone wants to be like someone else. Everyone wants to be Buddha. Or everyone wants to be Jesus. Or everyone wants to be Shakira. I'd rather be Shakira. But, because my hips don't lie. But the thing's this, just be you. Decide who you're going to be through the expansion of your consciousness. And love that. Love that.
I have a little bit of resentment towards my father for some memories of the past, for the treatment, how he treated my mom. So my mom died last year, and I'm with my father. He's in a depression, and I was serving him. And I don't do it truly. I do it because I feel it as a should, like an obligation. And it's very hard, that feeling, that resentment, because my resentment is too strong. I didn't heal it. And every time he asks me for something, I do it as an obligation.
You have to go deep. Have you really done a mourning process? Or have you put all your attention in your father?
I think I put more attention to him, trying to take care of him, avoiding to happen something and fear. So I maintain myself in his process more than in mine.
Well, you have to give to yourself now. Because there's a place where you're resented with him because you abandoned yourself. So this month, you have to move everything, feel everything. Because you can't be doing things through obligation. You have to be doing them through love.
Come visit our webpage for books, movies, and our wonderful retreat centers. Isha's simple yet powerful system is transforming lives around the world.